more than pretty much most in the industry. He's always putting together the best of the best and informing all of us what's going on realistically in the industry. And then he just put together an amazing 3-day event. So we're fortunate to steal Clayton away after such a busy schedule, because we know what it's like to put on an event.
Yeah. And so, yeah, you guys know my exhaustion level. You probably had it for a few days after you got back from Vegas for Momentum Builder, but it's I got home late last night. I'll admit I spent this morning doing what I consider relaxing, which was going to Home Depot and buying mulch, and then came into the office to record with you guys. So
Perfect.
See, you're still planting seeds, aren't you?
planting seeds, yeah. Yeah.
It does
Amen.
take about a week to get back into full rhythm.
Mhm.
You kind of got this event hangover. And it's not just from the 3 days of the event. I sometimes say, and Don's like, oh, why do you say it that way? But that's sometimes how I feel, is that the actual 3 days at the event are easier than the 3 months of prep before the event. It's just the last 3 months are trying to make sure every detail is perfect, trying to make sure that this person's going to be there, that person's going to be there, all the rooms reserved. And so to me, that's much more stressful than once you're there, and whatever happens, happens. You did the best you could.
Oh,
So
you say that. You see, Gino doesn't have the mechanics, so I'm going to give you a little kudos for being more excited. He just shows up, and what song we playing? Where there's a lot of mechanics of, is that speaker ready? Do they know what their timing is? Oh, they went overtime, so let's go knock off 4 minutes from the next person and shorten the the bathroom break or the lunch. And there's a lot to it, isn't there, Clayton?
that's why I have a co-host.
You're smarter than me.
I'm with you, Gino. That's why I have an event team. But no, like you still like all that stuff is like so stressful. And I mean, you're up and going at 6 a.m. every day, and then of course there's like dinners and evening events, so you're going till the late hours. So you come back after one of these things, and you need some rest. But exactly like you said, the 3 months leading up to it, you're kind of pushing off meetings and like so like I have like my today and tomorrow are stacked, and like next week is stacked of like all the things that I like pushed back. And it's like, yeah, let's connect after the gathering. And but hey, can't complain.
Well, we're very fortunate. We dressed up the call again, like we had Sasha and Kayla last week, and we brought Kayla back because she was actually at the event. So Kayla, I'll let you kind of tee up what the event meant to you, you being at the event, you being with Clayton there and all that. I don't want to steal your thunder because you were actually at the event. I just want to make sure everybody knew what this was going to be about.
I'm so glad I was at the event, because if I wasn't, I would have had FOMO, because I was seeing on LinkedIn left and right content, pictures, videos, seeing people come together at this event. Finally, it was like a reunion of people in our industry supporting each other, no matter which area you're in, whether you're a C-level or a lender, whatever role you're in. This was an opportunity to come together under one roof and support everybody and reconnect. And I could not tell you how many posts I saw on LinkedIn saying I have FOMO, and I was so glad I was there. But this
Is that our
event,
post?
I was gonna say one of those
yeah,
posts was mine.
I think it was. I saw a few, but I'm just so impressed at the caliber of people that attended this event, the knowledge, the expertise, the vibrancy, and the community all coming together for one purpose. And, one of the questions I have and what I want to kind of tee up for Clayton was, this was my first gathering. And so I didn't know what to expect. And, I was just at Momentum Builder. I kind of knew what to expect, which it was blown out of the water, you guys. But with the gathering this year, Clayton, this was the first time real estate and mortgage was under one roof, correct?
Yeah. So I mean, this was our first official The Gathering. So call this inaugural. A few years ago, back in 2020, we acquired Real Trends, and Real Trends has had the Gathering of Eagles for 30 years. And this is like a legendary event for real estate brokerage CEOs and owners. And during COVID, we initially virtually, and then in 2021 in person, we launched HousingWire Annual. And this year in 2024, the gathering was HousingWire Annual and the Gathering of Eagles coming together. And it's been part of our strategy since the beginning from a news perspective, to cover real estate and mortgage and servicing and capital markets under one roof. And our mission statement is to bring housing professionals the full picture. And we felt that hosting siloed events, like having like, hey, let's put the originators over here and the execs over here and the brokers, real estate brokers over here, it was counter to that mission of like bringing people together for the full picture. So the gathering was our first time doing this, first time bringing everybody under one roof, and I mean, it's I'm proud. I'm really proud. Like it came off really well. I'm
We were
usually
going to ask you how you felt after the event, because that's what you gauge it by, is after all that effort, you're like, how did it work out, and how did people feel? You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's I think if you're an entrepreneur like I am, or, you know, any event host or executive, like I believe in like Kaizen, continuous improvement. And like, I'm never like, probably the personality fault. I'm never fully happy. Like, but I'm like, I came out of this with like 1,000 ideas on things we can do better. But I've seen the feedback. I saw the social post. It's humbling and wild. Like, I mean, people were pretty happy with the event, but I still know there's a lot we can do better.
Yeah, my wife, every year, she's like, she sees all the stress that it's coming up to it, and then we go and do it, and she goes, right before I left, she's like, you know, you're just gonna go and you're gonna have the best time ever, and everybody's gonna love it, and you're gonna come back and you're gonna be happy. Just go,
Yeah.
just go do it. You'll be fine. And of
It's
course,
so much stress.
exactly
and
how
like,
it went down.
it's like, but I don't know, like, no matter how an event goes, I think you come back off the back end with like some type of dopamine, or like some type of like just hit. It's like, oh, it's a big thing to put on an event. It's like, to, you know, every bit of energy that you have as a person, professional, executive, the social elements, like trying to remember hundreds of people's names and like trying to like be
Right.
on your
And they know
game
you
for so
because you're
long.
one of the hosts. They're like, hey,
Yeah.
Clayton. You're
I
like,
can't tell you how many
and Mike.
unnamed hugs or whatever the hell they're called. You know, you're just like, oh yeah, hey, what's up?
Like, yeah, like couple of those, you're like, oh crap, like that was so and so, and like I've like been talking to her or him online for 3 years, or like we've definitely met at an MBA conference in 2018. It's like you're trying to like stay as sharp as possible, but it's hard.
That's probably the hardest part, is that what kind of trips me is when I see someone in person, you can't tell how tall someone is virtually. And then when you see them in person, you're like, oh, are you that person? But you know, funny story, there was a gentleman that I met after 10 years of being connected on LinkedIn. 10 years, you guys. I met him at the gathering this last weekend.
Who
So
was that? Do you remember his name?
John Tallinger.
JT, awesome.
Yes, yeah. Clearly, everyone knows JT, but the power of social media and the power and ability that we can have to break geographical boundaries to connect with people. And I think for you guys, especially being up on stage and, you know, being known as, you know, the people in the room that are the creators of these events, it has to be a little overwhelming because, you know, people see us go to these events and they're like, oh, it looks like a blast. And although it is, it's a blast. I am so exhausted, because in the best way, because you're having conversations with people, you're meeting friends you've never met. And it is literally like, we got an Airbnb, some girls and I that I've never met. And I'm like, we're talking mortgages, like we're getting ready. And I'm like, I can't do that at home. Like, you're surrounded by the people, your family, and you can't stop talking about it all because you're so excited, you know? So that's what I loved about the gathering, is it brings people together for the same commonality, you know?
And Kayla, if you do have those conversations when you're getting ready at home, then our HousingWire saying, and you probably saw this on stickers at the event.
Sure did.
Oh, I don't know if you can see that. Impress your colleagues, bore your family to tears.
Yep.
Might be a very a very apt thing if at my house. I'm sure my family's bored as hell talking about mortgage, and I've shared this with Don and Gino before. My dad's an originator, and I grew up very bored listening to him talk about mortgages.
My
Look,
poor
gave you a good
wife,
foundation,
Gino's, I'm
right?
sure they're like, my wife doesn't even care about mortgage, you know? And she's like, and she gets sick of momentum builder. Like, yeah. It's a lot of work. So kudos to you, Clayton. Really, really proud of you as well, because we know how hard it is. And that stress is really one thing. It's called care. It means you really care about what you're presenting, what you're bringing to you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for others, and you want them to get impact and enjoy and all that. So it was Chris, like, mortgages aren't boring. One of our guys, but good for you though, Clayton. I'm really
Chris,
proud, and
ask your
thank you for
family
coming
about
on
that.
today, because we wanted to steal a few highlights that you and Kayla got out of the event. Sasha's there, who's one of our hosts, and she's our chief momentum builder. She's got some family situation, and prayers out to her family right now, or she'd be here as well. She sent some great bullet points. She's so good at taking notes, as you saw, Kayla. She's like sent us like 4 pages of notes, Clayton. You'd be very proud that someone was actually paying that much attention.
We got the mortgage doc in the house, and he's somewhere in the world on a cruise ship. Thank you, Doc, for jumping on.
Holy crap. Good for him.
You have to ask Don, you have to see if Sasha wouldn't mind sharing those with me. I'd love to see the notes.
Yeah, I'm sure she would, but I'll let her decide on that. I guarantee she'll be very proud to share. She took notes from each speaker and about the companies and what they shared and all that. And I highlighted some of the items that I thought were, really interesting and cool stuff for our originators and our leaders that are on this call. And I know that's why you're on the call, just but we wanted to kind of tee up why Clayton's here, what the event was, in case you didn't know what the gathering was, that Kayla was there so she can give us insights from, internally. It's different than being on the outside, just seeing, hey, there's a great event, there's these speakers, but you brought rock star speakers with really relevant information about where the industry is from the people that know best, because a lot of times we just watch rates go up and down. We watch the market and supply and demand and all these things but there's a lot behind the scenes that we need to know more about, so we understand our industry and why they're doing what they're doing, why the margins are where they're at, why some are going from, to centralized processing because of margins, and why, and who's around, and a lot of M&A. There's a lot going on in the industry, and we thought we'd bring, you two aboard to kind of share some insights from the event, so that those who couldn't go, get some love from it, because they didn't get a chance to go like us. And we're really bummed that we won't miss it. Like I said, we just could not, when we found out about it, we just couldn't change our schedule around to be there. So we sent our proxies there. And Kayla and Sasha.
Do y'all have a date set for Momentum Builder 25 yet?
We're close.
We're close. Okay. We just went to Vegas again Monday and looked at 2 locations, and it'll either be end of February, or get your 2 opinion, or we might move it to the end of March, early April. I mean, yeah, because it's really hard to get people engaged by February, we're finding, because they just got out of holidays and starting the new year. So I don't know. We're thinking about
do it a little bit later. If you do it a little bit later, now you're into all the President's Club's trips for all the companies. Yeah. So it's a really fine line of, we still love the idea of launching in the beginning of the year, so that we get everybody jump started, so they keep their momentum going and really maximize earnings season like we're in right now. But at the same time, for us as event promoters, it's hard for ticket sales and all those things during the holidays. So we're going to keep at it. That's what we do. And we
don't want to get too close to yours either.
Well, we're not going so we're doing June 8th through 11th in 2025. So we're pushing back a little bit. Not
so
strategically.
It's gonna be a battle between you and Mastermind.
Yeah. Well, we didn't we like the April date, but we're going to Colorado Springs to the Broadmoor, and nice. April might be a little bit place. You're still kind of maybe in snow territory in April, so we're trying to get to that like shoulder season before peak summer in Colorado.
That's a great location. Awesome. Yeah. And that'll be really good for the community, for your community, keeping everybody together in such a bitchin' place.
Yep. Yeah,
that's good call. Good call. I like that. That's a really cool call.
Yeah.
I'm excited because I've been there before, and it's a beautiful location.
Yeah, it's primo spot. It's a pretty executive audience.
So bring golf clubs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you just teed on that. You said it's an executive audience, and I noticed that by the notes. But I also think that it's interesting that you have it that way, because they don't get to get together as a community as much as we do in the, on the ground, boots on the ground. We get together at, whether it be mastermind, momentum builder, sales mastery. I feel like we have more opportunities to get together than the C-suite executives and the people that are running the show. And I think it's good for all of them to get together as a community and share what's working, what's not working, make relationships and do all these things. Hey, I tried this and it didn't work. Are you profitable yet? No, I'm not. And where are you bleeding? I'm bleeding on, a head count, or I'm bleeding. I think all those conversations are healthy. And ultimately, we, as being in the field, don't have the right platforms and tools and things to succeed if they don't gather and share best practices amongst themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. There definitely are not as many opportunities for the C-suite to be in the same room, especially the C-suite across real estate and mortgage. So like when we're able to, in a day or two, have Glenn Sanford from EXP speak, and then Stan Middleman from Freedom, like back to back. I don't think those guys probably ever bump into each other. So we create a unique scenario for the real estate brokerage leaders, many of whom are doing mortgage JVs or partnerships or have their own origination channels, to actually talk to some of the big loan originators and servicers and create business opportunities.
Yeah. What did you feel was, is there anything that you were surprised about, things that you didn't foresee? Like you had a speaker that spoke about something that you're like, wow, that was a blind spot. We weren't on that. Because I'll give you a compliment. I have like 2 or 3 rumor feeds that that I'm on, where I get quick rumors about what's happening in the industry. And literally the next morning you're reporting on it. So I am like, man, you have your ear to the ground too. So you guys have your ear to the ground. You know exactly what's happening. So I'm curious if you were surprised by anything.
Yeah, I mean, so at a high level industry perspective, the theme that we're in a higher for longer rate environment is pretty digested. Like that's like consistent across the board. If we were hosting this event in 2023, there'd be a lot of conversation about, well, when rates come down and purchase picks up, or we're going to see rates drop quickly and hit a refi market. Those conversations have kind of stopped. It's accepting higher for longer and figuring out what that means for your business. And there's different perspectives there. So like there's people who are saying, all right, we'll stay the course. It's going to be higher for longer, but we're going to hold on to, excess operations or like other headcount that isn't necessary to fuel the current capacity level. And others that are still in an effort to get lean. So there's other tactics that were talked about, though. It's not just cost effectiveness. Another big one of working toward profitability in a market that has a higher for longer rate environment is focus. And in past events, I've heard banking execs and originators talk about bolstering their product diversity to fill the gap or fill origination volume. This event, there was a theme of focus, and people weren't talking about, all right, how do I expand our origination platform into every product out there? There was more like, hey, we're really good in this lane. Let's just focus on that lane really tight, because that's how we maximize volume and margin on the respective products. So there was this like kind of a newly emerging lens of focus from executives as they figure out their strategies to get through the market. And it felt like a different tone than I'd heard in past events in past years, where people were kind of like waiting for the market to save them, or thinking there was some silver bullet product or silver bullet sales strategy that was going to change the environment drastically.
Yeah, I think you're describing what we're living here with boots on the ground. And in the beginning, when you start cost cutting, you do cost cutting, cost cutting, cost cutting, cost cutting, and then you become hyper focused on efficiency, which is where we're at today. And I think you just described the same tone. And what people are looking for is what am I good at? How do I get better at it? Maybe a good to great conversation. And what are the things we're not good at? Like, ironically, like somebody just asked me about doing a 203K, and I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, we have it in our product lineup, but you're going to piss off every realtor, the buyer. You're really not going to do them a great service because that's not what we do on a day-to-day basis. Probably haven't done one in 6 months. We're rusty. The form, how do you fill out the forms? So all those things. So I think that the thing that you saw as it relates to focus is very important, particularly because product diversity is continuing to expand. When volume comes down, products evolve. And so we're seeing the non-QM space just explode with nuanced guidelines. So for somebody that's going to focus on non-QM, that's tough. That's a tough ask.
And I think there's more context to give too, because I can, you say higher for longer and talk about a prolonged high rate environment. And you could read that from me as like a negative comment. It was weird to hear people talk about this challenged market without the negativity and fear in their voice. Like there was still an understanding. It's the fear comes when the market's changing rapidly and like there's uncertainty. Now there's certainty. Like there's certainty that we're in a higher for longer rate environment, and everyone's like, got it. I know the playbook.
The market's a market. This is
I
where
know,
we're
I know
at.
what to do. And so there was a level of like confidence that came with the acceptance of the market conditions that we're operating in. Now, if you go into the economic data, which we had a lot of economic speakers too. So we had executives talking about the data they're seeing in their business. Stan Middleman talked about these extraordinary credit profiles that he's seeing inside of his portfolio. Logan Motoshami from our team shared some FICO band data that continues to reinforce the great credit profiles of consumers. So on the credit quality side, like we're still staying extremely strong. And go deeper in the economic talks. Odetta Kushi from First American and Mike Simonson from our Business Altos Research talked about some of the trends they're seeing in origination volume as it relates to changes in interest rates. And one of the cool things that we're seeing is that as rates prolong in the sevens in this higher for longer environment, consumers start to become more accepting of the rate environment. And the most dangerous thing to production volume and production volume growth is actually rapid change in interest rates, not prolonged high interest rates. And we're starting to see consumers develop a sense of acceptance around the rate environment, and not this the data at least is not showing that people are saying well, I'm going to wait to the threes. Like that people have like kind of have given up on that.
Figured that out finally.
Yeah, figured that out finally. So
that's an anomaly.
there's actually this is feels weird to root for like the sevens, but consistency can do a couple things for the industry. It can get consumers more comfortable with what might be kind of a more normal rate band in this current part of the economic cycle. Consistency will also over time start to bring down this relatively bolstered spread over the 10-year.
Yep.
And at the longer rates stay in the sevens, we'll start to see the spread tighten and like get us into the sixes and the fives eventually, even if Jerome Powell and the Fed doesn't start changing the target Fed funds rate. So we can see a reduction in mortgage interest rates with consistency as capital markets start to kind of digest where mortgage-backed securities and MSRs should be trading. From the mortgage banking executive and owner side, that also brings more consistency and a better idea of how to trade and sell mortgage-backed securities and MSRs, which gives them like another kind of tool in the toolkit on being able to flex on price when they want to flex on price.
I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. Volatility is the enemy of every capital markets person in the nation. So stability is something that we yearn for, and hopefully it's here. Even if it is a little bit high, it's fine. We should, but it's really not. We're currently still under the 50-year average interest rate. Now, granted, that seems like an awfully long time, but when you start looking at things like that, if we're under the 50-year average, then this is normal. It's not the new normal. This is normal. We were out of normal, and people want that. Of course we want it. We want everything to be for free. but that was out of normal. Now we're just back into what's normal. My first house was at 6.875, not all that different than a good day right now. And I've done very, very well over the last 20 some odd years in real estate. Even though I've had loans from 6 to 13% and 2% and 3%, but people get fixated on interest rate and they think that's the only factor of whether you should buy real estate or not. It's not what drives appreciation. It's not what drives home ownership over time. It's mostly demographics and how the economy is as a whole. And in fact, with interest rates being higher for longer, that's representative of our economy being more resilient than anybody thought.
And I like that you mentioned the insider information about what these companies are talking about, and the consistencies are important, because the other fear we had and why rates were where they were and the trading of the bonds were so horrible is everybody was afraid of runoff. You know, they're basically, everybody was going, well, these loans may only be here for 6 months. They may be here for three months or 6 months. So they're like, who wants these? Well, now that they're seeing there's consistency and higher for longer, they're like, oh, well, I can get some return on my investment. So it's going to help us in the long run. We just had to get through this adjustment period, and I appreciate you sharing that, because that's coming from the big wigs that see the numbers, live it, and are responsible for, you know, these banks and huge mortgage companies on where they're going and where they think the market is. So it was cool. That's why we wanted you on this, is to share some of that stuff.
I mean, a pretty like uniform across the board focus on profitable lending as well. And like there's there's just not room to be fighting for market share with pricing right now. Like everybody needs to be focusing on a P&L that shows gross profit and balance sheets that work. And we're gonna have volatility again at some point in some way, and people are just operating too thin without enough cash and not enough profit right now to handle any additional volatility. So like the industry's got to get its head around like pricing appropriately, bolstering cash, profitable lending, not doing bad loans. Like there's a lot of hitting on that topic, like not doing like the bad unprofitable loans, and then really starting to take a lens to understand product level and originator level profitability, and thinking about building businesses instead of just building volume for the sake of volume.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as it relates to that, we called it bankruptcy by volume. It is one thing that we saw before, and you get enamored by volume, but a lot of the times you have to see where's that volume coming from, right? So if the volume's coming from profitable types of products, great. But if the volume is coming from products that don't make you any money, you know, or have you cut your prices enough just to keep the doors open? There's so many things that they do. Everybody's using different tools and different strategies to survive. So I know that, Kayla, one thing I saw in the notes, and I was wondering what you thought about that. Was there as much talk about M&A as I felt like there was?
I feel like when I think of the buzzwords that I heard at this conference, what comes to mind and what I would say was my biggest takeaway, or like things that I wanted to come back and say, okay, how do I implement, was AI. That's where I heard like everywhere I looked, people were talking about AI, and even Rocket talking about how they're implementing it. And we always hear, mortgage lenders, are not going to be replaced by technology, but mortgage lenders with technology will replace mortgage lenders without. And I was more so impressed and excited to hear about what these companies are doing with AI. It was mind blowing, from like taking your scripts with a client. Like if you're not having a discovery call with a client, I'll say it, shame on you. You need to be able to, now more than ever, educate your clients, learn about them. And as Greg Scher said, you used to hear the like push button mortgage. Now it's, push button follow mortgage. We need to get out and educate our people, but to be able to have a call with a client and have that done by AI, where it takes all your conversation and puts it into a system so you can better serve your client, know how to reach them and meet them where they are. To me, I was more so shocked at what people are doing with AI. I mean, Clayton, did you get anything out of those speakers? Because holy cats.
Yeah. Well, so I did So Varun Krishna, the new CEO at Rocket, he joined in 2023. He joined me on stage on Tuesday morning for a keynote, and guy's impressive. And like I think everyone can like I think everyone's on the same page that the mortgage industry loves to hate Rocket sometimes. Like I mean, like there's
Yeah, I get it.
the big dominant player, and I wasn't exactly sure how the audience would receive Varun and like how like how they'd enjoy the session. That session got such positive feedback, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I heard. So Varun is a technology guy by background, came from Intuit, spent time at Groupon, like just a different profile, not a mortgage guy. And he doesn't try to go out of his lane. So like I went down some mortgage paths, and he kind of kept brings it back to technology, but knows how to talk about how the technology and the innovation that they're working on, the AI, applies to mortgage. And in that conversation, I mean, he revealed kind of what they've been doing in the background. They've a new platform. I think it's called Rocket Synopsis or Rocket Pro Synopsis, and they're using it, and it's like been part of their LOS. Now they're like peeling back like old parts of the LOS and doing everything as Synopsis. And they trained their language model on all of their servicing data and customer service interactions. So now at like time of origination, like in like when they're taking an app, like in like consumer direct, they're able to like start to pick up on vocal cues and like points in the conversation that helps direct the salesperson, the originator, toward more effective experiences. And like one of the examples he used is they're taking an app for someone, let's say they work security and they work nights, like they know they'll never send an email or do a phone call like before 10 a.m. or something like that, because they know like that's when the person's sleeping and they want to respect that. And so like they're starting to like build in like true AI into their origination process, flowing it into their servicing customer service process. I think he said so far, I don't think they're estimating that it'll save 40,000 man hours this year. And so like they're already like have pretty clear views on how it's going to change their workforce, and they're not looking at it entirely as a cost cutting measure, but they think it's going to dramatically improve their pull through rates and service experience, because they're picking up nuance in conversation that a call center originator or a traditional LOS wouldn't be able to like store or perceive.
Yeah, I'm gonna call that and I just had a conversation with Eric Levin about this. It's data-driven sales, right? So we used to sell because we were trained to respond to a consumer depending on what their need was. And now with AI, we're able to anticipate what their needs are based on the data we're receiving. Yep. And so I think that's where the paradigm shift is. And as it continues to get better, the more data I have on them, the more I can custom tailor something to their needs. And there's already some softwares out there that do a really great job of capturing some of that data. And we're probably only, I know this sounds crazy, but we're probably only like 10 years out from being to where it's all fully functional. I feel it's all in beta stage right now.
It's yeah, but it's I think we anticipated that the biggest companies would have an advantage in AI. It's expensive, and especially if you want to be there early. So like not surprising that Rocket's the first player here. But like is kind of surprising the quality of executive and Varun they brought in to lead this. Like he is a top tier formidable CEO. Like the guy's going to do things. And I think he made a really positive impression on everybody in the room. Not just like from oh wow, they're doing cool stuff, but like the way he talks, his delivery, his leadership style, like they've got a player. And like now we'll have to see like, all right, how democratized will AI actually be? Like everyone else who talks about AI are really just talking about playing around on the free version of Chat GTP and like being a little bit faster with our email prompts. Or is the tech vendor landscape going to be able to like play at the same innovation level and roll out AI tools to the thousands of other mortgage companies and the tens of thousands of originators that aren't on the Rocket platform?
Well, and if you want to scale your business, I mean, think of the way that you can delegate to elevate. You need to have efficiencies in place. And I think it was Joe from Total Expert said, focus on your $500 an hour activities. Focus on those. And so when I think about the time that I spend typing in, asking questions, when there's AI that can do it for you, I think companies should be looking and saying, okay, what can we do today to implement? And that also shows your lenders, your loan officers, that you're investing in them so that they can get out and go do what they're best at, which is relationships. It's not the, taking notes. Let's be honest, we lenders are just not detail oriented. But to me, it's like hearing that these companies are investing in their people that way so that they can better reach the client and give a better experience. That to me was profound.
I love that, Kayla.
Mhm.
And great insights, Clayton, regarding that, because that's where we're going. Everybody is questioning how that's going to tie into our business. And if we do it right, it'll be an advantage for us and not take away our jobs type
Yep.
thing. One of the other things, Clayton and Kayla, like I with things to the notes from Sasha and stuff, some of the things that came out, which I thought is really important because this is a community we've all been challenged, all been struggling. The winter lasted a lot longer than any of us thought or wanted it to. Just plain and simple. We're all like, May 10th last year, is almost back up. We were hoping, remember that May 10th, rates are going to go down and we'll be ready to go and we'll come back. And now it's a year later. What I liked about your conference that you had to both have seen based on the notes I'm seeing here is a lot of the experts basically are saying stuff like, expense versus investment. Take out the noise and emotion out of it and just do your job. Meaning, because everybody's so emotional and waiting for the market to get better and hating when the market goes up and down. Like we're training our guys, the market just tanked 100 bips last week, and everybody's like, oh, well, our team's getting actually like, we're like, it is what it is. Everybody's got to deal with it. Stop worrying about that. Just go out and do what you got to do, because it's been doing that now for a year and a half, 2 years. So just take the emotion out of it and be a good human and do a great job for your clients and build relationships. Thank God it's going back to relationships though.
Yeah.
There's a time everybody thought tech was gonna, do our job for us, but realistically, it's really building relationships again. And not even just educating. I love, don't say educate, say home engagement, path to home ownership. Because don't tell somebody they need to be educated. I love that. You're like, oh, that kind of is demeaning.
But you're spot on, because even Haley Parker talked about it. Stop talking about products. Stop talking about products. Now is your chance to articulate your value, both on the real estate end with NER. We know what's happening there, but not just as a realtor, but as a lender. You need to stop focusing on product and start focusing on what is the result. And I loved Haley's presentation where she talked about, from Fairway, she talked about talking about what you're doing for the client. What's the solution? What's the experience? And by doing that, it humanizes it. I read a stat that said 65% of people would rather go to the dentist than meet with a lender. And I'm like,
that's horrible.
And so you think about that though, you guys, and it's like, how can we provide value? How can, and Don, you just hit it. It's making, there's some psychology with this. People are scared still, but we have to be the ones to educate, empower, and guide them, and be aware of that they're a little gun shy still. But I loved when Haley talked about, stop focusing on help someone get a 30-year mortgage today. It's about the experience and what that person went through. And, I'm a single mom and I got a home, or I helped somebody achieve home ownership that was denied somewhere else. Like, focus on the end result. And I think amazing things can happen.
Haley got like a standing ovation on that one. I was outside the room at the time. And I just heard a rumble as she finished her talk.
Yeah. She did great. And it resonated with people, because I think for so long, the barriers to entry for being a lender, the barriers to entry to being a realtor, they're lower. And I think that with difficult times, we've kind of weeded out the people that were just kind of doing it part-time, or, maybe making it super transactional. But these challenges have allowed us lenders to really be able to find ways to be that value added lender. I mean, look at what Kristen Messerly is doing with First Home IQ. I mean, spot on. And what she talked about too, it's also profound, because it all resonates with us lenders that want to take care of the client, not just make a paycheck.
And I'm gonna piggyback on that, because what you just said is the same thing we heard at the Modern Mortgage Summit, and it's an echo of what we heard at Momentum Builder. You have to care.
Mm.
If you don't give a shit about your borrower and you're in it for the money and you're a hardcore closer, like the old school hardcore closer, you're out. The new generation of buyers, the new generation of people that are in the market, they don't buy that shit. They're not into hard sales. And I now I'm hypersensitive to it because I heard it 2 or 3 times, and I was engaged with somebody right now about coaching, and they were like, okay, well, let's set up next Tuesday. I was like, I can't do next Tuesday. It's like, oh, if we can't do it next Tuesday, well, then I can't honor that price. And I'm like, well, then pound sand. I'm out. I'll go find somebody else.
Technical term.
Sound fan.
But really, I was going to say something else. I neutered myself. So. I was going to use a less popular expletive.
Gotcha.
And then the same thing happened to me yesterday. There's another event that I'd like to attend, and they're trying to sell me a $4,500 ticket. So it's a large ticket.
Yeah.
And it's the first time I ever talked to this guy on the phone. I've only been on the phone with him 20 minutes trying to sell me a $4,500 ticket with it's only 10 grand and there's only 2 spots left. And I have to give it to you today. I have 3 other people waiting for it. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, dude. Where do you think? You think I'm just born yesterday? So I think we're on to something as an industry, is that we really have to demonstrate to people that we care about them, that our goal is their goal, that we're in alignment, and money is the byproduct of the relationships that we build, but it cannot be the focus. I think those that focus directly on money right now are going to lose.
I agree. All right, so we have 15 minutes left. I'm gonna challenge both Clayton and Kayla to share something else that they got out of, because we weren't there, and I know those were, the participants on the call are like, all right, what else did I miss? What did I miss? So if you guys have any other pearls of wisdom or things you heard about either industry or tactics or strategies, share something, because I'm sure there's, like I said, Sasha had 4 pages of notes, so there was a lot of great content. So again, kudos, Clayton.
Well, Kayla, I'd like to hit, I think there's a few more things to say about M&A. I think there's a couple of things to say about the commissions lawsuit. And where else do you want to go? Do you want to do it? Do you have a third one that's popping for you?
You guys know where I'm going to go with this. It's branding. It's social media. You guys know that that's like my baby, but hearing the reiteration of that, the validation of that, to me, that's what really hit home for me.
All right, cool. So I'll quick comment on M&A, then I'll go to you for branding, and we'll come back to commissions.
Sounds good.
M&A, big topic, but like not a lot happening. So on Sunday, we hosted like a half-day summit called Deal Makers for real estate brokerage M&A. There's some brokerage M&A happening, but it's moving a lot slower than anybody would expect. And we think that's, it's not obvious. People are waiting until the commission's lawsuit settlement comes into action. And on Tuesday, preliminary approvals came through. So we'll go that a little deeper in a second. So there's a little more clarity there, but I don't think anybody really knows what's going to happen to the overall commission pool yet. So that's slowing down real estate brokerage M&A. On the mortgage side, the big thing that's slowing down mortgage deals from happening is certainty on buyers' ability to retain originators. And there's a big question out there over what are we buying? And there's big brands, there's historical production volume, but there has been issues on pulling through originators after an acquisition. And that comes back to some of the other topics we're talking about around brand and culture and values. And there's just a lot of, some of the soft skills, some of the soft, cushy things that need a focus for deals to be successful. And so a lot of buyers have pulled back a little bit on their speed of acquisition. And the deals that have happened, a lot of them have kind of looked like walkovers, where there hasn't been a lot of cash consideration at close, but prolonged earnouts for owners on the acquired business continuing to hit certain production hurdles. And if you're going to have a long earnout on production hurdle, then as a seller, you need to be pretty savvy or have a pretty clear idea about why your originators are going to stick around post deal. So that ability to retain originators is is a major concern. And if we go back to the earlier conversation about not having profitable lending operations, that's another hurdle to selling your lending business. So mortgage M&A has been a lot slower. Rumors are there's still some big deals out there in the mix that are in diligence or in negotiation, but nothing's moving fast. And like as an M&A professional, I know that time kills all deals. So we'll see. But
Right.
it's yeah, it wasn't as big of a focus as I thought it was going to be. Moving on to the NAR settlement. So on Tuesday, we made a big change to our agenda. And Kevin Sears, the president of the National Association of Realtors, flew in and did a session with me on Tuesday morning. That was not anticipated. So we're really excited to be able to bring him to stage and answer some of the questions and address some of the concerns that had come up on stage in the previous 2 days. And about an hour before we took the stage, the settlement got preliminary approval, gave a little more certainty on the timeline. So everyone had been talking about this like July date or like mid-June, July date, the 120 notice period after the March 15th Ides of March announcement day. And that settlement now has a new date. It's in November. So like the settlement has to be complete by November and the for final approval. And in that time period, all of the terms of the settlement have to be complete, which the big one is removing commissions from all MLS listings. And where the industry seems to be focusing most of its effort is there's 18 states today that already have either a requirement or a market norm of doing buy side like representation. And now the other 50 states plus DC are working toward buy side representation. And there's uncertainty over like how that's going to impact the total commission pool. There's also uncertainty over how some of those buyer commissions are going to be paid. And that's one of the really important reasons we brought mortgage and real estate together so those conversations could be had, because I think there's been some feeling or like vibe in the mortgage side that this is a real estate problem. Deal with it. Hey, mortgage community, guess what? We're going to need GSE, FHA, and VA support and how to finance a lot of these buyers' commissions. And it's going to probably be a joint solution that mortgage and real estate have to figure out together. And so that was the tone of that session with Kevin, is like, this is like, I think we have a view of where this is going, but like first time home buyers aren't going to be coming to the plate with cash to do a down payment, closing cost, and a buy side commission. So do the GSCs get comfortable and roll this into part of a financing package? And does that become the market norm? That's the big thing that's going to be figured out in the next 7 months.
They're stomping their feet saying no, but that doesn't mean they won't do it.
They're also not gonna like we know like the mission of our very Washington DC driven housing market, which is to help first time home buyers, first generation home buyers, diverse home buyers like get into the housing market. And if we don't figure out a system to pay buy side fees, it's gonna be great for existing homeowners and really terrible for first time.
Nailed it. Kayla, you want to jump in a little bit on social media?
Yeah, I mean, to me, when you have, the level of people at these conferences, I think loan officers, CEOs, everyone kind of questions, should I be posting? And a lot of times it may feel irrelevant. Like, why should I? And I think that the people that were on stage, the people that shared anything about social and branding was so spot on. A couple of things I wrote down were sales pros who use social media for sales outperform 78% of their peers. That's mind blowing to me. Like that stat alone, leads generated by employees via social are 7 times more likely to convert. That is a huge deal. Like, and all that we need to do, truthfully, is use this thing in our hands, this device to get on and come into the homes and offices of people that are wanting to connect. And so for me, it was validation. I pour into social personally, I connect with people just like you guys I've gotten to know. And to me, when I think about my business, when I am being sent to a client and another lender is being sent to a client and they Google my name and they Google that other person's name, because we know that's where they're going. That's where I went to every restaurant that I was going to go to in Paradise Valley. That's where we go. And if you are searching someone and they're not relevant, they're not coming up, you're a lot more likely to feel a connection to that other person. And so I just had such a love of the people that were talking about just being authentic. And like we talked about earlier, stop selling the darn product and start talking about the needs and the pleasure points, not the pain points. Like, oh, I don't want to have the maintenance and I don't want to hire price payment for a house. Think about the things like, I want to have a yard for my dog. I want to have a kitchen where we can spend Christmas holidays, anything. And to me, hearing those individuals like Haley, Mo get up there, it just re-evaluated, like, you need to do this, because if you're not, you're going to miss out. Why would you not do this when you know that you have such an ability to reach the masses? That was my biggest takeaway from those speakers.
It's really, my social media presence is quadrupled because I changed my picture to yours, Kayla.
Oh, well. All you need.
All of a sudden people are engaging. I'm like, what's up? Hey.
You got all those new followers.
Oh,
Exactly. Like,
You guys.
hey.
We were having a follower competition and he took the lead. I wasn't sure what happened.
I love it. But truthfully, some really amazing, incredible wealth of knowledge speakers that was at this event. And all I have to say is I'm glad I was there, because I would have had serious FOMO.
Yeah, we have major FOMO. That's why we stole Clayton the next day, at least. And Clayton, so cool of you to take, like I said, I know you have to decompress. We understand it, but it just shows how committed you are to our industry and educating and informing and letting people know what's really happening. That's the key. There's so much noise out there. It's all bullshit. And it's really nice to hear what's really happening and what the experts think and what producers are doing, to succeed. There's people that are succeeding quite well. Yeah. And we're just sharing what they're doing. It could be as simple as, Kayla, Jeremy Forcier. We asked him what his secret is. He goes, all I do is I wake up and seeing who I can impact every day. He doesn't have any secret, nothing up his sleeve, no magic tricks or rabbits coming out of his head. He's like, now it's all about impact. All I want to do is impact people positively. And it's amazing what that has created for my business. Mm-hmm. So, and you guys have been doing that and you're sharing this. And it was nice of you guys both to take time out of your schedule and you out of your naps that you deserve, Clayton, after that event.
No time for that.
Right? You just dive right back in, right?
We just opened our 2025 registration. We're on the marketing path already, ready to rock.
We know how that is. And you could do that because you put on a very successful and great event. You were able to attract some of the top industry leaders, which is not easy to do. We can attest to that. And that just shows that people respect you and respect what you're doing and respect what the gathering was all about. So kudos and thank you for joining our show today, buddy.
Appreciate it. Don, Gino, Kayla, thank you all so much.
Very cool. And Kayla, thank you for jumping in. We got a little housekeeping. I'm sure we got an event. We want everybody to download the app. We have almost 1,200 now that have joined our Momentum Builder community, and we're going to try to blow it up even more. So the app has a lot of resources and tools and info and recordings, and it's a great resource. That's what our goal is, a Momentum Builder. Remember, we're just brand ambassadors, and all our job is to find the best of the best people like who are on this call, the best, coaches, the best tools, the best strategies, the best recordings and so forth so that you can learn more. So download the app so you can stay connected. And then we're starting to build out our community through our private Facebook group. And then we're going to go to Instagram and of course, LinkedIn, but join this so that we can engage on a daily basis. People don't live in an app unless it's like, Waze or Uber or something like that. So join the Facebook page and invite your friends so that we can get thousands of us sharing ideas and best practices and wins and ways for us to come together and help each other. We don't need to do this all by ourselves. We should do this together, and our Momentum Builder community is going to do that. So make sure you join our private Facebook group, and then of course we'll see a lot of you at, we have a special price. See, if you're involved in Momentum Builder, you get all kinds of goodies. So look at that price. You won't find a lower price. Matt did us a good. He actually helps us with our event, and he runs the Mastermind Summit. So we will hopefully see a lot of you there. Kayla, you gonna be there?
I won't this year.
Wah,
It's my
wah.
You've been going to a lot of events.
Well, it's my husband's 40th birthday, so we got some plans. So, but I have FOMO, so don't share any pictures because then I'm gonna be real mad.
Too
Oh no,
bad.
I'm gonna tag you in them all.
Oh, fabulous.
Absolutely. All right. So other than that, we have every Thursday, 11 a.m. Sometimes we have to move it. We had to move this one because we wanted to grab Kayla and Clayton to share all the great stuff from the event. And thank you for being part of our community. We love you all, and let's serve for success. Rock on. Thank you, Clayton. Thank you,
Clayton.
Kayla.
Bye, guys.
See you
Thanks
guys.
for joining me, Gino.